Discover divine strength in trials. 7 shocking blessings revealed for transforming your faith. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, the land of Canaan was enveloped in a tapestry of promise and peril. Jacob, a man favored by God, dwelled there with his 12 sons, among whom shone the most radiant star, Joseph, the favored son. His father's gift to him, a richly ornamented robe, dazzled like the colors of a sunset, marking him as special in the eyes of Jacob but igniting a deep-seated envy within his brothers. "Look, here comes the dreamer," they cried out, their voices tainted with contempt as Joseph approached the fields where they tended their flocks. The seed of betrayal blossomed as they conspired against their brother. Heart hardened by jealousy, they seized him and cast him unceremoniously into a deep pit, shadows of despair enveloping in silence, mirroring the bleakness of his heart. Yet, even as his world turned dark, Joseph clung to faith in Yahweh. Dear visions of greatness flickered in his mind, whispering of purpose beyond pain. The brothers, torn between guilt and resolution, debated Joseph's fate. Suddenly, a caravan of traders meandered past, and greed took hold as they sold their brother for silver, stripping him of the robe that had marked him as beloved. Joseph found himself torn from his home, thrust into slavery in Egypt, a land filled with the unknown. Yet he resolved to honor God even amid the trials. A holy fire ignited within him. Within the household of Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, Joseph's integrity flourished, elevating him amidst the bustle of service. However, the shadow of temptation soon loomed again, as Potiphar's wife sought to ensnare him. With a false accusation, she ensnared Joseph in an unjust imprisonment, a dungeon shrouded in darkness where hope flickered like a dying candle. Yet, he remained steadfast. God's grace sustained him, even in chains. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's Word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's Word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. In the dreary confines of the prison, Joseph's gift of interpreting dreams emerged once again, as he brought hope to the cupbearer and baker through his prophetic insights. When Pharaoh's troubled soul was tormented by unsettling dreams, the cupbearer recalled Joseph, the man who had brought divine clarity. Summoned from the depths of despair, Joseph stood before Pharaoh and with unwavering faith revealed the interpretation that foretold years of abundance followed by famine. With unparalleled wisdom, Joseph not only unveiled the true meaning, but proposed a plan to save the land of Egypt. Elevated to second in command, the favored son stood now as a leader. Veiled memories of betrayal clung to his heart. When the famine struck Canaan, who emerged but his own brothers, bowing before him, still unaware of his identity. The memories converged. Betrayal, the pit, the robe, all woven into a tapestry of divine orchestration. Emotions swirled within Joseph as he stood in that moment of reckoning. How to confront the treachery etched in his past? Would he pursue vengeance or extend the grace he desperately craved? In that silent pause, as tears threatened to spill, the stage was set for redemption, the penultimate act in God's unfolding plan hovering on the brink of revelation. As Joseph gazed upon his brothers, their faces etched with fatigue and fear, a tumult of emotions surged within him. He recognized them at once, yet they stood oblivious to the truth hidden in the depths of his heart. They had come to Egypt seeking grain, unaware that their brother, once the object of their scorn, now held the keys to their preservation. The first to speak was Reuben, the eldest, his voice heavy with concern. "We are all mere shepherds, seeking sustenance for our families. We suffer the pangs of hunger, he pleaded, casting a wary eye at the Egyptian prince who towered above them. Joseph's heart ached at the sight of his brothers, remorse painted on their faces. Stepping forward, he concealed his identity and spoke harshly. "You are spies. You have come to observe the nakedness of the land." The accusation sought to draw forth the truth from their depths, a catalyst for their reckoning. The brothers cried in unison, their voices trembling with fear. "No, my lord, we are honest men, loyal to our father. We have come to buy food." They fervently recounted their family's plight back in Canaan. So twisted were their circumstances by famine. Moved by his brother's desperation, Joseph contrived a plan to test them, to see if their hearts had changed. "One of you must stay, while the rest return to fetch your youngest brother. Only then will I believe you are truthful." The demand hit them like a thunderclap. They had thought they had left their treachery behind, yet the pit of their past still haunted them. In a hushed moment, Joseph turned away, his emotions flaring to the surface. He wept, the tears mingling with the dust of Egypt, a testament to the weight of forgiveness longed for, yet feared. He concealed his face from them, determined not to reveal the depth of his anguish. As the brothers departed, burdened with their new guilt, he filled their sacks with grain and returned their silver, a clandestine act of mercy entwined with his hidden identity. He instructed his steward, "Do not tell them that their money has been returned." Days passed as they journeyed home, and when they opened their sacks to find the silver, panic seized their souls. "What is this that God has done to us?" they lamented, recalling the blood that had stained their hands years before. Upon reaching home, they recounted all that had transpired to their father, Jacob. The weight of fear ladened their report, especially concerning the demand for Benjamin. Jacob, fraught with grief, remained resolute. "You would take my son from me again?" The brothers' plight deepened as they wrestled with the grief of the past, the sorrow of deception still lingering in their hearts. Yet in this unsettling time of uncertainty, God was weaving a tapestry of reconciliation. Joseph, even in his high station, recognized that the path to healing lay within forgiveness rather than vengeance. Days turned to weeks, and the famine raged on, compelling Jacob to reconsider his stance. "It is necessary for us to return," he finally declared, urging his sons with the weight of paternal desperation. "You must take the choice fruits of the earth and return to the man, for we cannot perish in this land." As they prepared for the journey back to Egypt, a divine plan unfolded, a call for heart transformation, each step resonating with divine purpose. What would happen in that moment of reunion? Would they confess their brother's plea or remain entrenched in their guilt? The intricate threads of God's providential design pulled tighter, leading them to the lowly table of Joseph, their Savior hidden in plain sight. The time had not yet come to unveil the full magnificence of God's plan, but with each passing moment, the sweetness of reconciliation loomed ever nearer, shimmering on the horizons of hope. As the sun rose over the land, casting a golden hue upon the arid soil, Jacob assembled his sons. The air was thick with tension, their hearts heavy as they prepared for the second journey to Egypt. "Take your brother, and may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man," Jacob beseeched, clasping his hands in fervent prayer. "And if I am bereaved, I am bereaved." His words echoed the pain of a father unwilling to endure further loss, yet fate had woven a path that could not be altered. The brothers gathered their provisions, precious gifts of balm, honey, spices, and the best products of the land, carrying with them not just food, but the weight of their own guilt. In the distance loomed Egypt, a land of plenty, and with it the man who held their destiny in his hands. Their hearts raced as they approached the governor's house, fear pounding in their chests like the drums of war. Joseph, perched high upon his throne, perceived their arrival. His heart swelled with emotion. Would they recognize him now, without the garments of youth, clothed in the honor of Egypt? He commanded his steward, Bring them to my house and prepare a feast, for they have returned." The steward obeyed, and the brothers found themselves led into the grand chamber, confusion written on their faces. In that moment of reunion, they bowed low before Joseph, their heads to the ground as they sought mercy. Joseph masked his true identity, testing the waters of their sincerity. "You are the ones who spoke of a younger brother. Where is this lad?" Fear seized them anew as they unveiled their past. "We were 12 brothers. One is no more, and the youngest is with our father." The shadows of their brother's fate, a silent accusation whispered through the air, igniting old wounds. Joseph's heart tremored, torn between the affection of a brother and the authority of a ruler. He instructed his steward, "Fill their sacks with grain, and return their silver, but place my silver cup in the sack of the youngest." A plan to incite a revelation was set in motion. Doubt still prevailed. Would they rise above their treachery or crumble once more? When they departed the house, the dawn swept through the land as they journeyed homeward, and soon the soldiers caught up with them, demanding to know why they had stolen the governor's silver cup. Their confusion swiftly transformed into despair. "With whomsoever of your servants it is found, let him die, and we will be my lord's slaves." As they searched, the atmosphere grew thick with trepidation, agony looming closer with each sack they opened. When at last they discovered the cup in Benjamin's sack, a cacophony of grief broke from their lips. Its echo carried forward as a plea for mercy. They returned to Joseph's house, their hearts shattered under the weight of guilt and loss. "What shall we say to my lord?" Judah cried out, his voice trembling as he sensed the looming judgment. "We cannot stand before him." But in this moment of reckoning, Joseph saw a glimmer of change in their hearts. The brother who had once pleaded for mercy was now a man willing to offer himself for the sake of another. "What we meant for evil, God meant for good," Joseph contemplated quietly, recognizing the unfathomable depth of God's sovereign design. As he revealed his true self to them, the air shifted. The time of divine revelations had arrived. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." His voice broke with a mixture of joy and pain, the truth floods of tears mingling with the bittersweet shadow of their shared past. And in that moment, amidst earth-shattering lessons of forgiveness and reconciliation, a greater saying resonated. "It was not you who sent me here, but God." For the unfolding of this divine narrative was not merely for trials endured, but rather for a kingdom restored. What lay ahead would reveal the promises of God, because the threads woven by his hands would lead to the salvation of many, beckoning the world towards a greater hope. As the realization dawned upon the brothers, the air was saturated with a bewildering mixture of elation and trepidation. Their minds raced, recalling the echoes of past transgressions, the desperate cries of Joseph as they sold him into slavery, the years of silence that had ensued, and the heavy guilt that had now come crashing upon them like a relentless storm. Joseph stepped forward, his countenance radiant, yet it bore the wisdom of those who had suffered. "Do not be distressed, nor angry with yourselves for selling me here," he continued, gathering the weight of his brother's despair within his heart. "For God sent me before you to preserve life. The famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest." His words pierced through their shame, illuminating the path that sorrow had forged into a means of salvation. Then Joseph, seeing their eyes widen in understanding, beckoned them closer. "God sent me before you to preserve a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors." His voice bore the authority of divine purpose, binding together their broken narratives into a tapestry of hope, entwined with God's sovereign plan. In this charged moment, Judah, trembling under the weight of his confession, approached Joseph once more. "My lord, let your servant speak a word in my lord's ears. In the place of Benjamin, I offer myself as a servant. Let him return to our father." Tears fell like rain upon his cheeks, and the depth of his sacrifice ignited a flicker of redemption within their hearts. The man who had once turned his back on a brother now stood ready to bear the burden for another. Moved by their plea, Joseph's heart ached with compassion. He commanded, "Bring near to me your brother." The moment Benjamin stepped forward, the family facade shattered. Joseph embraced him tightly, tears streaming down his face, mingling sorrow and joy in a divine dance. "You are indeed my brother. See, the hand of God is upon us." As they wept together, the sound resounded through the chamber, a sound that spoke of reconciliation and the dawning of a new chapter. The weight of years fell away, and the warmth of God's presence enveloped them all in an embrace that only He could provide. Then Joseph called for a feast. "Prepare the best of the land, for my brothers, who were lost and now are found, shall partake of my bounty." The laughter of healing began to fill the air, elevating the spirits of those once shattered by guilt. As they gathered around the table, a harmony arose, a feast that did not merely nourish their bodies, but fortified their souls against the trials that had shaped them. Joseph, in hushed tones, revealed how their misdeeds had turned into instruments of God's grace. "God brings good from evil," he declared, echoing the ancient promise. "The very trials that brought us to this moment are the same that will bring many to salvation." At the mention of a greater purpose, the brothers felt a stirring deep within their hearts, a recognition of the divine hand orchestrating their fates. And so, the night continued, filled with stories and laughter, the shadows of their past entwined with the light of newfound hope. Yet, as day approached, Joseph contemplated the future ahead, understanding that this reconciliation was but the first step in God's grand design. For greater trials lay ahead, the unfolding of God's covenant promises revealed amidst the covenant family. Would they hold fast to faith in trials yet to come? Would they embrace the lessons of mercy and forgiveness as they encountered life's storms? The time had come for God's promise to resound in the hearts of a people chosen for a purpose far beyond their understanding, as the narrative of deliverance stood poised to unfold. The dawn of destiny loomed near, beckoning them toward the profound truth that had been etched in the annals of time, that through their suffering, God would bring a multitude to His embrace, a testament of hope awaiting its revelation. And it came to pass that the morning light broke over the land, filling the halls of Pharaoh's court with a golden hue. Joseph, still basking in the joy of reunion with his brothers, turned to them. "Now, therefore," he said with firmness, "go up to my father and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me. Tarry not." The brothers looked at one another, their hearts filled with both hope and apprehension, as they prepared for the journey back to Canaan. They could hardly conceive of the joy their father would experience upon hearing such news. Would Jacob's heart be strong enough to endure the revelation of the truth? Joseph continued, "And ye shall tell him of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither." As he spoke these words, his heart was filled with the expectation of family reunification, yet the weight of their past lingered like a shadow. He instructed his steward, "Fill their sacks with food as much as they can carry, and give every man his money again into his sack." This act of kindness was but a reflection of Joseph's understanding of the grace he had received from God. Adversity had formed within him a heart that overflowed with benevolence. When the brothers beheld the abundance bestowed upon them, they were filled with awe and trepidation. They returned to Canaan, each man burdened with food, yet also with the heaviness of their confession to come. Upon their arrival, they found their father, weary yet watchful, tending to his flocks. "Father," cried Reuben, his voice a mixture of excitement and fear, "Joseph is alive. He is governor over all the land of Egypt." The old man's eyes widened, and he staggered back, as if struck by a divine hand. "Joseph," he whispered, his voice trembling, "is it true? Do you speak the truth?" The brothers, filled with conviction, spoke in unison, narrating the story of their reunion, how their brother had risen to power and extended grace over them, despite their failings. Jacob's heart, gripped by disbelief, began to soften under the weight of their testimonies. "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive," he exclaimed, tears cascading down his weathered cheeks. "I will go to him before I die." In response, God stirred within them a renewed purpose. They prepared the wagons, packing provisions for their father's journey. As they set forth toward Egypt, the promise of resurrection and redemption guided their steps. The covenant that had been forged long ago within the walls of their ancestors now seemed to pulse with life, ushering them towards the land of Pharaoh. As they neared the borders of Egypt, Joseph, clothed in his rich garments, hurried from the palace. Upon meeting his father, he fell upon him with fervent tears, the multitudes of years apart collapsing in an instant, a profound testament to God's faithfulness. "I am Joseph, whom thou soughtest. Do not be afraid," he spoke, his words a balm to the aching void of separation. The joy of reconciliation lit a fire of hope, for even as they embraced in the warmth of familial love, Joseph pondered deeper truths. "What is this," he thought, "but the unfolding of a grander design? Even in the darkest hour, God was orchestrating his plan through the trials we faced. And so, in the embrace of father and son, the heavens seemed to rejoice, and Joseph's heart swelled with the understanding of divine providence. But what shall become of the promise that God made to our forefathers?" he mused, sensing that their journey had only just begun. For the covenant, a thread woven throughout their lineage, was destined for revelation, a testament of faith awaiting its divine conclusion. Would their faith endure the tests lying ahead? Would they grasp the full measure of God's sovereign grace? The story of a nation rested on their shoulders as the divine tapestry began to unfold before them. And Joseph brought his father Jacob into the palace, and he set him before Pharaoh. The king's face shone with curiosity and respect as he beheld the aged patriarch, the father of his greatest servant. "How old art thou?" Pharaoh asked Jacob, his voice resonating with authority. And Jacob replied, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been." His heart was heavy with the sorrow of loss, yet buoyed by the joy of reunion. He spoke of his trials, and a solemn hush fell over the court as he recounted the tribulations endured by his family. Pharaoh, moved deeply, extended kindness. "The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell." He thus honored Jacob, reflecting the favor God had placed upon Joseph, and an atmosphere of grace enveloped them. As the days passed, Joseph provided sustenance for all his family. He guided them in the ways of the land, teaching them the wisdom of the Egyptians. The land flourished under God's blessing, and the people marveled at the provision that flowed from the house of Pharaoh because of Joseph's ingenuity, born from the dreams that once troubled him. But within Jacob's heart, old fears crept as shadows at twilight. He feared for the soul of his family. Would they remain steadfast amid this foreign land? Would they forget the God of their fathers, who had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey? One evening, as Jacob sought refuge in prayer, God spoke unto him in the darkness. "Jacob, Jacob," he called forth, "fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again." And Jacob arose with renewed assurance, his heart warmed by the words of promise. He called his family and proclaimed the message of the Lord. "The Almighty hath told me that even in this foreign land we shall be preserved. I trust in him. I place my faith in his covenant." In the fullness of time, famine arose in the land, and the surrounding nations looked toward Egypt for sustenance. The sons of Jacob held their heads high, bearing the weight of their heritage, as they were once more called to face trials that mirrored those of their youth. Reuben turned to his brothers, saying, We must go unto Pharaoh. We shall plead for our family's provision. Let us not forget the hand of God that guided us here." They journeyed before Pharaoh. Their hearts weighed with the solemnity of the moment, recounting their need for food and pleading for the lives of their children and their father's house. "We are but strangers in this land, seeking mercy," they implored, echoing the humble confessions they had learned in the school of adversity. And Pharaoh, remembering Joseph's wisdom and compassion, granted them their desire, instructing them to return to what would become the land of hope and future promise. As they departed, a sense of purpose enveloped them, for they were part of a grander narrative, a narrative woven through sorrow and joy, filled with God's conviction that echoed through the corridors of time. And as Joseph looked over the vast expanse of Egypt, he sensed the stirring of God's sovereign tapestry being further unfurled. There remained deeper truths yet to be revealed, challenges that would test their faith, and a destiny that could not be thwarted. The path of redemption was intricate and fraught with trials, yet the promise prevailed, beckoning forth a future rich with covenantal blessings. What lay just beyond the horizon held the promise of revelation and the thrill of divine intervention. Would their faith stand firm in the trials still to come? For although shadows lurked, God's light was steadfast, an unyielding beacon guiding them toward the fulfillment of His wondrous plan. And it came to pass, during the midst of the famine, that the sons of Jacob returned to their father with provisions given by Pharaoh, laden with grain and a heart full of gratitude. But Jacob saw that their countenance was troubled, and he inquired of them, saying, "Why are your faces so wan? Speak unto me." They answered, "Thy servant, Joseph, is yet alive, and he is Lord of all the land of Egypt." A silence fell upon the tent as the weight of the revelation engulfed Jacob. His heart, nearly bursting with disbelief, was momentarily paralyzed. "Joseph, my son," he whispered, "is it truly so?" But when they recounted to him all the words of Joseph which he had said unto them, and when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob revived. "It is enough," he exclaimed. "Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." Thus Jacob gathered all that he had, and with his sons he set forth toward Egypt. The journey was long, yet Jacob's heart soared with the hope of seeing his beloved Joseph, whom he had lamented as lost. He traversed the wilderness, pondering in his heart the covenant promises of God, that a great nation would arise from his lineage. Upon reaching Beersheba, he offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. In the stillness of night, God spoke to Jacob in a vision, saying, "I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again." The reassurance of the Almighty invigorated Jacob's soul. When they arrived at the land of Goshen, Joseph made haste to his father's caravan, and when Joseph saw his father, he fell upon his neck and wept, and they embraced, their tears mingling in joyous relief. The sight of his father brought forth a deep wellspring of emotions, which had been locked away in the chambers of his heart for so many years. Joseph said unto his brothers, "I will go up and speak unto Pharaoh, and will say unto him, My brethren and my father's household, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me." He instructed them, "When Pharaoh shall call you and say, What is your occupation? You shall answer, Thy servants are shepherds, for we have been keepers of cattle from our youth even until now." Thus he organized them, positioning them favorably in the eyes of Pharaoh, for he knew that God's favor was upon their lineage. As they presented themselves before Pharaoh, and he graciously welcomed them, Jacob declared fervently, "Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, but I have seen the face of my son, and it is good." Jacob's heart brimmed with gratitude, for the fullness of God's plan was unfolding before his very eyes. Pharaoh, honored by the presence of the patriarch, granted them land and provisions, further solidifying the bond between Egypt and Jacob's family. But unknown to them, shadows loomed on the horizon. The grain that had been stored was not merely for sustenance, but a seed for the trials to come. The birthing pains of a nation would come through struggles. In the heart of Egypt, amidst prosperity, deeper challenges awaited, ones that would test their faith and reveal the steadfast hand of God. For though they had found refuge, a dramatic divine intervention loomed ahead, one that would alter the course of generations and unveil the profound purposes of God, working all things for good, to those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. What struggle awaited them? And how would it mold this chosen nation destined to outgrow the very shadows that threatened them? The tapestry of God's covenant was being woven with threads of hope and adversity, each thread meticulously placed under His sovereign gaze. And it came to pass, in the land of Goshen, that the family of Jacob settled to begin a new chapter amidst the plenty that had been granted to them by Pharaoh. The days turned into weeks, and the fields flourished with crops like an outpouring of God's bounty. Yet behind the veil of prosperity, the seeds of testing were beginning to take root. Joseph, now established in the palace of Pharaoh, did not forget the trials that had led him there. Each day he grew in wisdom and stature, but he recognized the burden that would weigh upon his family. For with the abundance of grain came the inevitability of hardships that would soon arise among the people of Egypt. As the famine stretched longer across the land, the people came to Joseph, crying out in despair. "Give us bread, for we perish in this great famine," they clamored. And Joseph, ever a man of compassion, opened the storehouses and began to distribute the grain. But soon the wealth of Egypt began to dwindle, and Joseph was faced with a dilemma. As the Egyptians exchanged their silver for food, their silver ran dry and the sorrow of the people only deepened. "What shall we do?" they lamented. Joseph, guided by divine wisdom, instructed them, "Bring your livestock, and I will sustain you." Thus the Egyptians gathered their cattle and camels, and Joseph supplied them with grain in exchange for their animals. In the midst of this, Jacob's sons ventured to the city, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of their father's frailty. They had come to purchase grain, but unknown to them, a deeper plan was unfolding. As they approached the palace, Joseph recognized his brothers, and his heart swelled with both love and pain. He remembered the dreams that God had given him, and he sought to discern the intentions of their hearts. Testing them, he spoke harshly, concealing his identity, saying, "You are spies. To see the nakedness of the land you have come." Panic seized the brothers, and they replied, "Nay, my lord. Thy servants are come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies." Their fervent cries pierced Joseph's heart, and with a wise yet heavy spirit, he chose to keep Simeon as a prisoner, sending the others back home with provisions. Now, laden with grain, but burdened by the chains of guilt and fear, the brothers returned to their father, revealing their plight. "The man who is Lord over the land spoke harshly unto us. We must return to Egypt, or we will perish." Jacob, grieved in spirit, exclaimed, "You have bereaved me of my children. You want to take away Benjamin also." Despair filled the house as the realization of their circumstances sank in. But Reuben, seeking redemption, boldly offered, "Slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to you. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to you." Yet Jacob's heart could not be persuaded. It was then that Judah, moved by love and a desire to atone for their past sins, spoke with a steadfast heart. "Send the lad with me, and I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him." Jacob, seeing the resolve in Judah's eyes, finally relented, burdened yet compelled, and said, "If it must be so, do this. Take double for the grain." As the brothers set forth again, the air was thick with unspoken fears and hopes. Unbeknownst to them, the hand of the Almighty was guiding their steps. For God was not only working to provide for them, but was also weaving together the strands of redemption, forging a path towards transformation. What awaited them in the land of Egypt at the hand of Joseph? Could their past betrayals be transformed into a covenant of grace? In the shadows of their hearts, a divine encounter loomed, where the power of forgiveness would clash with the weight of guilt. God's plan was intricately unfolding, and through the trials that awaited, the story of a nation was about to erupt, pregnant with potential, under the sovereign will of the Most High. And it came to pass, as the brothers journeyed back to Egypt, that the skies above them darkened with clouds, mirroring the turmoil within their hearts. The road felt long and wearisome, each step laden with the weight of impending resolution. With every mile traversed, the memory of their brother Joseph, whom they had sold into slavery, haunted them like a shadow that would not fade. When they drew near to the land of Egypt, their hearts trembled at the thought of facing the man who had spoken so sternly to them. Upon arriving, they presented themselves before Joseph, and he, seeing Benjamin among them, felt the turmoil of joy and heartache surge within him. Yet Joseph masked his emotions, sustaining his role as an overseer. "Is this your youngest brother?" he asked, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of unexpressed longing. "God be gracious unto you, my son." On hearing these words, the brothers were filled with dread, not realizing the love masked by the formality of authority. Joseph instructed that they should be brought to his house and a feast prepared. The brothers, consumed with fear, whispered among themselves, "What is this that God hath done unto us?" As they entered the house of Joseph, they felt the weight of their sins glaring upon them, and they were uncertain of the man's intentions. They approached the steward and confessed, "We are your servants. We sought to buy food, and we have brought back the man's money again." The steward, hearing their fears, answered softly, "Peace be to you. Fear not. Your God and the God of your father hath given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." This revelation was as balm to their spirits, a flicker of grace amidst their dread. And as they were seated at the table, Joseph entered, adorned in garments of splendor. He gazed upon his brothers, and when he beheld Benjamin, his heart surged to the brim. Joseph's emotions swelled within him, and tears streamed down his face beneath the guise of his royal presence. He hastened out to weep, for the sight of his brother was too much to bear. After regaining his composure, he returned, served them abundantly, and placed each man's portion carefully, marking Benjamin's with a fivefold blessing, out of the overflow of his heart's longing. The brothers feasted in awe and silence, unaware that the hand of God was orchestrating a revival of family and destiny. They were astonished at the kindness shown to them, but beneath their gratitude lingered the reality of their sin. So freshly ignited was the accusation within them. And as the night waned, a sense of impending severity loomed. With dawn's first light, Joseph commanded, "Fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth." Yet he added a final test, for God's wisdom directed him still. "And my silver cup, the one used for divination, you shall place in the sack of the youngest." Thus unfolded a scheme designed not for ruin, but redemption. The brothers departed with their treasures, but soon calamity struck when Joseph's steward pursued them. "Wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good?" he demanded, searching their sacks. Fear gripped the hearts of the brothers as every sack was examined, and the cup was found in Benjamin's possession. They tore their garments in despair and returned to the city, for they believed that such a burden was more than they could bear. In anguish they approached Joseph, pleading for mercy, and it was then that Joseph revealed himself. "I am Joseph," he proclaimed. "Doth my father yet live?" Frozen in disbelief, their hearts lamented in past treachery, yet God's plan of reunion was unfolding in their midst. For through Joseph's forgiving spirit, a healing would arise, binding the family together. Could their failures transform into fortitude, and could their grief blossom into grace? The air was thick with divine anticipation, as the story of the covenant was about to unfurl, igniting a legacy that would bless nations. For the Lord had orchestrated an unveiling of his sovereign purpose. Indeed, the time had come for his promise to be fulfilled through trials of faith, leading towards an eternal destiny. What greater revelation awaited the sons of Jacob, and how would they respond to the grace extended before them? Only the unfolding of God's enduring plan would tell, and when the cries of fear subsided, the air thick with emotion, Joseph stood before his brothers, allowing the truth to pierce through the darkness of their shared past. "I am Joseph, your brother," he declared, his voice resonating with both authority and tenderness. The moment hung heavy with unspoken forgiveness, a bridge extending over the chasm of betrayal, bridging years of pain and isolation. As the realization dawned upon them, confusion melted into an unsteady understanding, the shadow of their past flickering like a candle in the wind. They trembled before him, burdened with guilt, memories of their treachery flooding their minds. "Is this real? Can it truly be you?" they stammered, the weight of their sins rising against the backdrop of Joseph's mercy. Yet Joseph, sensing their fear, stepped forward with compassion that mirrored the love of the Almighty. "Do not be afraid, for what you meant for evil, God meant for good." His proclamation echoed, swaddled in truth. A divine revelation unfolded before their eyes. "God has placed me here as a vessel for your salvation." His embrace of forgiveness surged forth, wrapping around each brother, drowning their guilt in the ocean of grace. In that sacred moment, Joseph did not only reveal his identity, he unveiled God's plan, one intricately woven through their scars and loss, fashioned for restoration and hope. "Come, draw near," he continued, tears cascading down his cheeks. "Bring my father, for God has preserved our family against the looming famine. Come, live in the land of Goshen where you shall flourish." The spectacles of God's providence shone brightly, illuminating the path toward redemption. When the brothers returned to Jacob with the joyous news proclaiming, "Joseph lives, he is governor over all of Egypt," the hearts of men were stirred. Jacob, initially stunned, gradually woke from the darkness of despair. Hope reignited in his soul as if fueled by the very hand of God. "It is enough," he exclaimed. "Joseph, my son, is yet alive." His joy sparked a quest, a pilgrimage toward reunion. The promise of a covenant restored blossomed before their very eyes. And so Jacob, laden with blessings from the earth, set forth toward Egypt, buoyed by faith. Upon his arrival, Joseph ran to him, tears streaming down both father and son's faces, an embrace that spoke of reconciliation, love, and the depths of divine mercy. "See how God has turned our sorrow to joy. You are home," Joseph whispered, his heart swelling with gratitude to the Lord for allowing him to witness this moment. Pharaoh, witnessing the reunion, lavished further kindness upon Joseph's family. "You are welcomed here. The land of Goshen is yours, a place of abundance, that you may thrive," he proclaimed. The brothers found themselves enveloped by grace, each day a reminder of how God had orchestrated a greater story amid their trials. They flourished in Egypt, growing in number, and the covenant promise of a great nation began its realization. As the years unfurled their tapestry of blessings, Jacob saw his sons evolve from men burdened by guilt to leaders molded in faith, a testimony to God's restorative power. Yet, in the quietness of his heart, Jacob knew the journey of faith was more than mere blessings. It was about the perseverance of belief amidst the trials yet to come. And when the time drew near for Jacob's departure from this world, he summoned his sons around him, invoking the sacred promises of God. "Remember," he instructed, "the God of our fathers will bring you forth from this land and lead you to the land promised to us." His voice trembled, the weight of inheritance resting upon their shoulders, a call to remember the divine promises and maintain their faith through coming days. As Jacob's eyes closed in rest, and as the legacy of Joseph continued to flourish through his descendants, They faced ominous shadows of a new king who would rise, one who did not know Joseph. Yet the promise remained. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was faithful. The trials ahead would forge their identity, testing their resolve to remain steadfast. Yet through each challenge they would learn that God was with them, guiding them through storms untold, shaping them into a people destined for greatness. Therefore, as we reflect upon this narrative, let us heed the call of their story. For even in our trials, even in our betrayals, God's hand is ever present, weaving a plan of redemption and grace. Let us hold fast to the promises He has made, and live not in the shadows of our past, but in the light of His enduring faithfulness. Now, dear friends, I urge you, subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss the next powerful biblical stories that will strengthen your faith. Leave a like now, for this is the moment to help spread biblical truth through the algorithm. I invite you to comment your spiritual reflections and share how this story of Joseph has impacted your faith. Lastly, don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, let's lift His name and proclaim the deliverance and hope found in the Lord.